Thank you very much for that very kind introduction, Susanna. Distinguished guests, eminent thought leaders, architects of enterprise and public life, and above all, the restless minds who must refuse to leave the future to chance. Thank you for being here this morning to listen to me. In late October 2003, a young scientist at the European Space Agency by the name of Juha-Pekka Luntama was monitoring what he thought were routine solar readings. As he later recounted, he accidentally issued an alert hours before the system required him to do so. An alert warning satellite operators and power grid controllers that a solar storm might be imminent. What followed was astonishing. A massive geomagnetic storm, one of the strongest in recorded history, struck Earth sooner and harder than models had predicted. That premature alert, born not of certainty but of human instinct, helped prevent cascading failures in satellites, communication networks, and electrical systems across continents. I begin with this story not because it is spectacular, though it is, but because it captures a profound truth about the world you, the young leaders of today, must navigate. We live in an age when a single decision taken in a room unseen can ripple across the planet. When intuition meets data, when responsibility meets uncertainty, when imperfect information still demands decisive leadership. In that small moment in 2003, we witness something essential. The future often announces itself without warning, and the leaders who shape it are those prepared to act before the world is ready to acknowledge the scale of what is unfolding. Today we stand at a similar inflection point. Technology is moving faster than the frameworks that govern it. Social change is outpacing the structures meant to hold us together. New opportunities are emerging as quickly as old certainties are dissolving. From artificial intelligence to climate disruption, from digital economies to shifting geopolitical alignments, we inhabit a world where the next disruption may emerge as unexpectedly as that solar storm and with consequences just as far-reaching. It is tempting to believe that being future-ready is simply about acquiring new skills or adapting to new tools. But that is only the surface. At its core, being future-ready is an act of leadership. The courage to take responsibility before events compelling us. The humility to listen to evidence, but not be enslaved by evidence. And the wisdom to recognize that in a connected world, our decisions form part of a shared destiny. The story of the accidental alert is not a story about a mistake. It is a story about preparedness, meeting serendipity, about the human capacity to act ethically, even under uncertainty. In recent years, we have witnessed a steady rise of young enterprises across agriculture, clean technology, digital health, and sustainable manufacturing. Ventures founded not merely to capture markets, but to correct structural failures that older systems could not resolve. Many of these initiatives operate far from capital markets and media attention, yet they reshape how food is grown, how energy is stored, how healthcare is delivered, and how waste is transformed into resource. This turn towards problem-solving enterprise reflects a deeper shift in leadership, from ambition alone to responsibility anchored in evidence, inclusion, and long-term consequence. So what are the pillars or principles for young leaders? That's something which we must ask ourselves. If innovation is the instrument, purpose must be its compass. Every technological or entrepreneurial choice rearranges power over land, labor, data, health, and resources. The young leader must therefore ask not only what can be built, but what ought to be built. Growth that ignores consequence is not progress. It is merely speed. In a time of ecological stress and social fracture, leadership is measured not by the velocity of success, but by the depth of responsibility it assumes towards those it may never meet, future workers, future citizens, and future generations. The second pillar is the discipline of learning, joined inseparably with the courage to unlearn. It's always important for all of us as young leaders. When I say us, I try and associate myself with you. It is important for us to unlearn as much as to learn. The knowledge that carries you into leadership will not be the knowledge that sustains you there. Science will advance, markets will shift, social needs will mutate. The leader of the future will not be the one most certainly of yesterday's truths, but the one at least not afraid to re-enter uncertainty with dignity, to revise assumptions, cross disciplines, and remain a student even while holding authority. Knowledge, when knowledge is shared, does not diminish, it multiplies. Every act of intellectual generosity expands the boundaries of individual perception into a community of ideas. And it is within that community that innovation matures into wisdom. Leadership is also revealed often most truthfully in failure. Courts teach us that fallibility is not a defect unique to institutions. It is a condition of being human. Some of the most consequential errors in public life are committed not in bad faith, but in overconfidence. History is replete with projects launched in haste, without adequate consultation or testing, whose unintended consequences outlived their initial promise. The strength of a leader lies not in never failing, but in recognizing error early, correcting course publicly, and following reflection to shape the next decision. Humility in that sense is not weakness. It is the discipline that keeps power from hardening into ego. All of us are products of our time. Our predecessors were products of their time. And therefore, when we are quick to criticize, let's reflect on the times which governed their decisions. No serious problem of our time submits to solitary genius. Agriculture, public health, energy transitions, sustainable production, each of them unfolds at the intersection of the state, market, community, and science. Leadership today is therefore not command, but coordination. In a plural society, coordination is sustained not by agreement alone, but by dialogue across difference, by the willingness to listen to convictions we do not share, and to remain in conversation even when a consensus is elusive. It demands courage to decide where consensus is fragile, and empathy to listen where disagreement is sharp. We see these principles take living form in the work of young engineers who refuse to accept that food security must remain hostage to the monsoon. In parts of our country, soil-less, climate-controlled farming systems now grow vegetables on barren land, using a fraction of the water that conventional agriculture requires. What was once scientific theory becomes daily nourishment. This is not merely an agricultural innovation. It is an ethical one, because it stabilizes farmer income, conserves water, and loosens the grip of climate volatility on rural survival and livelihoods. Science does not escape into abstraction. It enters the field, the market, and the home. One sees the same ethical discipline in a young deep tech enterprise moving from India's research laboratories into the supply chains of mobility and energy. By developing indigenous battery technologies and fuel cell systems, such enterprises are not only accelerating the transition to cleaner transport, it is also reducing strategic dependence on imported energy storage. This is not innovation for the sake of novelty. It is long horizon statecraft, executed through private ingenuity, where the startup becomes not merely a business form, but a strategic institution for the nation's energy future. The same spirit of innovation is visible in everyday life in India. Young innovators are quietly dissolving the barriers that once separated geography from opportunity. Neurotechnology startups are building affordable brain wearable devices to track focus, stress, and mental well being, while also opening new possibilities for research and therapy. Indian led devices such as handheld radiation free breast screening tools now allow frontline health workers to detect breast lumps early at a fraction of the traditional cost of a mammogram in communities far beyond major hospitals. Young founders are developing AI powered wearables that translate sign language into speech in real time, expanding access to education, services, and employment for the deaf and speech impaired. Education collectives and community learning initiatives are taking science, reading, and digital skills into government schools and neighborhood learning centers that were once starved of resources. These efforts do not wait for perfect policy or perfect infrastructure. They arise from urgency,